is very frequently these computers, when they get turned off at night, they default back to their original setting. And we want to be able to have something called the data analysis pack available to us. And on most of your computers, it's probably not available right now because it hasn't been reinstalled. But if you go up to the very top and click on data, so go ahead and click on data, Kyle, at the very top. And if I look over here, I actually don't see the data analysis pack. And probably many of you don't. So if you look down to these instructions, we would like to go ahead and make sure when you get on computers here at the college that you have the data analysis pack available to you. So the first set of instructions on page 1 are loading the data analysis pack. So let's follow the instruction. Kyle, maybe you can help us, okay? So I've got Excel open. Click on the File tab, left-hand tab screen, and what do I want to click on next? Options. So let's wait for a minute. Many of you see that. So I clicked on File, then I clicked on Options. And what I want to do is I want to select an add-in. So go down to Add-ins. And if you click on that, you get confronted with essentially a lot of different add-ons that you can use with Excel. And what we'd like to do is highlight the Analysis Tool Pack, which is where Kyle is. Just highlight that. Okay, it must be okay. Everybody's looking at me. Okay, and then I want to go down here and click Go, because that's what I'd like to add in. All right, and so then I want to click on that, and then I want to go ahead and click on, I want to check the Analysis Tool Pack. That's what I want to load in. And I want to click on OK, and hopefully it'll load. So you can go over here. Now, what Kyle has got up here in the top is this Data Analysis Tool Pack. And that, a lot of times at night when the computers are turned off, that thing goes away. It's not available. And if you click on that, just click on Data Analysis. What it does is it gives us a lot of statistical functions that aren't necessarily available just through Excel. How many people are lost? Okay, great. So we would like to spend a few minutes just doing the histogram. Before we do a histogram, though, we have to have some data. So I apologize, but why don't you go back and get the data you've just been working with and put in the first 15 observations, okay? So
yeah, I did it.
put the first 15, or maybe put them all in. Yeah, it doesn't matter. In fact, I tell you what, before you do that,
Is it M-A-Y-A and J-A-M-I-E?
large enough so that you're right. ATM.
Okay.
The ATM data. We've been working.
Like stereotypes, but I think Americans tend to be warmer.
How many people have all of the ATM data in there?
There's no other word, I don't know, there's no, because she's not mean, she's not. Yeah. Only thing I can think of to describe it. Yeah.
Regression, it will do a histogram, it will do how to function, you can't find it.
Wow. Time anyway, is what I'm teaching.
Where are they? Yeah, we're at the library.
Really, what else are you taking this semester?
Kyle, you get them all in? Okay. How many people are ready to move on? Now you want to see that again? Andrew, you getting ready? Okay. All right, let's, if you've gotten all of the ATM data in, that's terrific, okay? So let's do one or two things before we do the histograms. At the very top, let's go back to home. So go ahead and click home, Kyle. Top left, click home. Now, when we clicked home, now we don't see the data analysis pack. It's a different toolbar. But over on the far right, there's a little indication says auto sum right above it. No, auto sum right there. And click the drop down menu there. Go to the right a little bit and click the arrow. And this function at the very top, or the drop down, auto sum, gives us lots of functions. So come down here and click more functions, Kyle. And that auto sum at the very top kind of is a whole dictionary of different functions that you can do on data. And some of you may even recognize some of these. As I look down here, it's, if you look at, these are most recently used, click up here on this drop-down list right here and go to statistical, right there. And you're going to see a whole bunch of functions that you might notice. Average is mean. Slide down a little bit more, Kyle. Slide down more. Go to see if you can find the mean, or the median, and the mode. There you go. We got the median, we got the min number, we got the multiple modes, single modes. But there's a lot of functions that are available for us. Let's try one or two. Let's go all the way back up to average. Average, okay, let's read the definition. Returns the average, the arithmetic mean of its arguments, which can be numbers, names, arrays, references, blah, blah, blah. So let's click OK. And it says, okay, well now you have to tell me where the data is. And so, in terms of telling you where the data is, you want to go over here with the cursor and say, all right, well I'm going to take the data and I'm going to do those 30 ATM observations. And say, you can even see the result before it's actually done, because the result is 81.9333, which is, I think, what we got. So hit OK. And it will put it on whatever cell that you were on when you said OK. Questions on the mean? Let's do the median. Okay, so go to a different cell, Kyle, and say, where are we going to put the median? Now, where are you going to put it? Okay, so if you click on this cell, B1, that's where the median is going to pop up. So let's go over to auto sum, drop down to more functions, and now we got to find the median. Okay. And now you've got to tell it where your data is. So you've got to come over here and highlight all of your data. All right, and okay. Median is 82, which is, of course, the same thing that we got, right? Questions? How many people are totally lost? That's great. All right, so we got about 5 minutes to make a histogram. We know what the histogram should look like. It should look like what we drew up on the board if we make it in 5 classes. But Excel doesn't know right at this moment what the class boundaries are. So Excel calls these class boundaries bins, B-I-N-S. They're called bins. And the way Excel will draw a histogram, it will do goofy stuff if you don't tell it what the boundaries are. But if you tell it what the boundaries are, it will draw a nice histogram. So we need to make a list of our bins. That's Excel's term for the upper boundary. So we need to go over, oh, I don't know, let's put it over here in column C, start Kyle. And what we need to do is we need to put the upper boundaries. So we need to put 69.5. That's the first upper boundary that we wanted to utilize. The next one is what? 78.5, 87.5, 96.5, and 105.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to use them to tell Excel what our upper boundaries are for our categories. Left to its own devices, it does some really crap work. It will not necessarily even have the intervals the same size. So let's go ahead and go over here now. It's not under auto sum, that's why I wanted the data analysis package. So now if you go back up to data and come over here and tap into the data analysis package and find histogram, because that's what we want, and click OK. Okay, but now we do the histogram, it's going to ask you for a couple of things. And you've got to be a little careful because when I've given this assignment, invariably people make this mistake, okay? You've got to say, what's the input range? Well, that's our data. That's over here. So you can highlight all your data. What's the bin range? Well, that's what we just put in. That's the 5 upper boundaries. Great. Here's where people make the mistake. If you click and say label, that's telling Excel that the first piece of information is a label. And you now have reduced your data by 1 piece of data because it now thinks 72 is a label. So if you have a label up there, like if you said ATM withdrawals and you started in row 2, then you'd say label. We don't have a label in this case. If you have a label, great. But if you don't have a label, don't check the labels box because I get all these submissions and they have 29 pieces of data in them. Or 1 short, and I have a label, which is the first piece of data, which is not right. So all your calculations are then wrong. So be really careful of this labels box. All right, so, and then it says output range. But click on output range and come over here and then just make a big square right here somewhere, Kyle. Just, yeah, that's fine. Okay, just so we can see everything. And let's just double check. So we got the data in column A1 through A30. We've got the bins, which are our upper boundaries. And let's say, what do we want in our output? Well, we would like to have chart output. So we definitely want a chart. We want a histogram. Okay, so let's hit OK, see what happens. All right, now you want to slide that over. Yeah, so click on that slide. That's great. You make it even bigger. Okay, so that looks pretty good, okay? Now, what it hopefully shows, how many people have something that looks like that on their screen? Great. great, that's progress, okay? So it says bins, but those are actually what we know as the upper boundaries. Here's the frequency distribution. It's the same as we've seen here. But then Excel does kind of a goofy thing. They have this, well, in case you didn't know better, I'm going to look to the right of your last upper boundary, and there's 0. So this is kind of useless for us. You can delete that, but the point is it puts that there. But you can delete those 2 cells because we know we don't have anything there. We've done our homework with the bin, so you can just delete that information if you want. Okay, so if you want to pretty up your histogram, you want to make it look a little bit better, there are a couple of things you can do. First of all, you can make it bigger or smaller by clicking on it, activating the boundaries, and like Kyle did, he click here. Yeah, you can make it bigger, smaller, you can move it, and that's great, because everybody can see that, Kyle. Anybody else notice something wrong with the histogram? The bars don't touch. Excel all of a sudden said the bars don't have to touch. Well, that's not correct with the histogram, right? Because it's a continuous number line. That's a number line on the bottom. So if you want the bars to touch, just click, not with the left click, but go to any bar and right-click on the bar. So hit any bar and right-click on it, and then if you can go down here to Format Data Series, go ahead, and say no gap. So Kyle is moving to no gap, so they all should touch. So that's what our histogram ought to look like. You can fool around with the labels. We don't like the term bin. Those are really upper boundaries in our parlance. Bin is meaningless. Kyle is awesome. That's the name of the chart. Okay, that's good. These would be upper boundaries of ATM withdrawals on any given day. So I guess that's about it. Now, I guess having said all of that, I got to get you out of here in 1 minute. Everybody, if you don't have one of these sheets, which is the sheets I was passing around as you're following, on the top of page 1, on the top of page 1 of this sheet, that's your Excel #1 homework, due a week from now. So there's data in the textbook on page 121, and it asks you to make a histogram and figure out the mean and some other things, but it should be done in Excel. And we can find the data, page 121 at the end of chapter 2, I think is what it is. Okay. That's due next Tuesday. Don't do it on your calculator and hand a piece of paper in and says, I did these on my calculator. That's not the drill. The drill is to get you some experience using Excel, okay? So struggle through it a little bit, okay?